Jared had traveled through many strange corners of the galaxy, but nothing had prepared him for the world of Siralith. From the moment his shuttle broke through the soft lavender clouds, he felt an energy in the air unlike anything he had known. The planet seemed alive in a quiet, gentle way, as though the wind itself carried memories older than human history. But all of this wonder faded into the background when he finally stepped out onto the floating crystal platform and saw her, Leora, the alien woman who, according to every story, every whisper, and every ancient record, had never aged a single day in thousands of years. Her beauty felt unreal, almost painful to look at. Not because it was perfect, but because something behind her eyes felt impossibly sad. She stood tall, wrapped in flowing silver-blue robes that shimmered like moonlit water. Her hair wasn't exactly hair, it moved like strands of light, dancing gently around her shoulders, even though the air was still. But what struck Jared the most was her expression. She looked at him as if she already knew him. Not in a political sense, not because he was a human envoy, but in a deeper, almost personal way. As if she had been waiting for someone like him for a very long time. And seeing him now brought relief and pain at the same time. "Welcome, Traveler Jared of Earth," she said, her voice soft like a distant song. "I am pleased you have come." Her tone carried a weight that didn't match her calm smile. Jared felt something tighten in his chest. This meeting had been arranged strictly for diplomatic reasons. Deliver an updated treaty proposal, stay for a ceremonial dinner, then leave the next morning. Nothing more. Yet the moment he looked into her glowing silver eyes, he felt like he had stepped into a story older than his species. Leora guided him through her palace, and at every corner he found himself more amazed. The walls were made of crystal that changed color with their emotions. The floors hummed with soft energy that responded to their footsteps. Outside, floating gardens drifted through the sky, carrying the scents of alien flowers older than human civilization. Birds with transparent wings flew in patterns that formed symbols of long-lost languages. Even the rivers had their own glow, like streams of living memory. But among all the wonders, Jared couldn't shake the strange heaviness in Leora's presence. She walked with a calm grace, yet her shoulders carried a quiet sorrow. She smiled kindly, but the smile never reached her eyes. It was as if she had seen too many worlds rise and fall, too many people come and go, too many promises break with time. And though she welcomed him warmly, he sensed something hidden beneath her calm exterior, a silent fear. Or maybe a loneliness so deep it had become part of her very soul. During dinner, she asked him about Earth, its oceans, its rain, its short-lived but passionate people. She listened with such intense focus that Jared sometimes forgot she had lived 10 lifetimes longer than any human. She asked about laughter, about friendship, about what dreams humans chased in their brief years. It wasn't just curiosity. It was longing. When the meal ended and the sky outside grew darker with twin moons rising, Jared stood and bowed politely. "Thank you for hosting me, Lady Leora. I will return to my ship at first light." Her expression changed, not visibly, but he felt it in the air. Something inside her pulled tight. "You are leaving so soon?" she asked softly. He nodded. "My mission is short. I wasn't meant to stay." Leora looked away for a moment, her glowing hair dimming slightly. "I understand," she whispered. "Mortals must continue their journeys. That is their nature." Her voice trembled for a second, almost too faint to notice. Jared felt a sudden urge to speak, to reassure her, but he didn't know why. She was eternal, powerful, ancient. Why should his leaving affect her at all? Later, when he walked to the guest chamber, he glanced back. Leora stood alone at the balcony, watching the stars with an expression that could break a stone heart. Her face wasn't the face of an immortal queen. It was the face of someone terrified of another. Goodbye. He didn't know then that she would refuse to let him leave. He didn't know her reason would shake him more deeply than anything he had ever faced. All he knew was that something was beginning, something he could not yet understand. The next morning, Jared woke to a pale violet sunrise streaming through the crystal windows. The air carried a faint hum, soft and calming, yet there was an unease in the quiet. Leora was already in the balcony garden, her silver hair glowing faintly under the twin suns. She did not turn when he entered. She merely spoke, her voice calm but filled with something Jared could not place. "You cannot leave," she said. Jared froze mid-step. His heart skipped a beat. He expected diplomacy, not declarations like this. What do you mean?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "My mission is complete. I am supposed to return." Leora turned slowly, her glowing eyes meeting his. The depth in them was overwhelming, as if she were staring into his very soul. "If you leave now, I will lose everything," she said simply. He frowned, shaking his head. "Everything? Leora, I don't understand. You are a being of endless years. You've lived through centuries, worlds have risen and fallen. What could I possibly take from you by leaving for a day?" She walked closer, her movements smooth and fluid like a river of silver light. "You think in terms of time," she said softly. "You think a day, a year, a lifetime matters. But for me, every person I care for leaves. Every soul I touch departs eventually. Every connection fades. And I am left alone. Always alone." Jared swallowed hard. He had met beings with power beyond imagination, beings who could crush worlds without effort, but he had never met someone so vulnerable in the midst of endless strength. Leora's words carried a weight he had not anticipated. "So, you want me to stay?" he asked cautiously. Her gaze softened, but there was pain in it. "I do not want to demand it. But when someone like you comes, someone who laughs easily, someone whose courage is quiet but undeniable, I cannot let them leave so easily." Jared's mind raced. He had prepared for diplomatic discussions, for negotiations, for small talk about culture and trade, not for the kind of raw emotion she was showing. "Leora, I can't just stay," he said. "I have duties, a life. My people, my crew, my world. I cannot abandon them." She nodded slowly, a small, almost invisible nod. "I know. That is why this is so difficult. I am not asking because I desire control. I am asking because I cannot endure another loss. I have endured thousands. I cannot endure another." He felt a chill run down his spine, not from fear, but from understanding. Her loneliness was not abstract. It was real, tangible. It pressed against him like a living thing. He realized that her refusal to let him leave was not born of selfishness, but of desperation. Of a centuries-long ache that no one else could fill. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "Why not someone else, someone from your past? You must have met many travelers, many souls." Her eyes darkened with memories that stretched across millennia. They all left eventually. They all faded. They could not stay. None of them were like you. You are different. I feel it in the way you see the world, in the way your heart reaches out to others without asking for reward. I feel it in the way you hesitate, in the way you wonder if your presence matters. She stepped closer, her hand almost reaching his. "I cannot allow someone like you to leave. I cannot bear the thought of losing your light." Jared felt a strange mixture of fear, pity, and awe. He had fought wars, walked on hostile worlds, survived disasters that should have ended him. But he had never encountered an emotion so raw and unyielding that it could bind him in place with a single phrase. He wanted to speak, to argue, to convince her he could not remain. But the words would not come. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the hum of her palace filling the space between them. The glowing rivers and gardens outside seemed to pause as if holding their breath. Jared realized he was seeing not a goddess, not an alien queen, but a being who carried centuries of grief in her chest. And for a fleeting moment, he understood her entirely. Finally, he whispered, "I don't know if I can stay, but I understand why you want me to." Leora's lips curved into a faint smile, but it was tinged with sorrow. "Understanding is the first step," she said softly. "The next step is knowing the truth about why I fear losing you." Jared's pulse quickened. He had expected anything except this. Her words carried a weight that promised revelation, a story older than human imagination. He felt that his life had shifted in a single morning, that the decision he would face would not just change his mission, but change the course of his heart. And as he looked into her glowing eyes, Jared realized the world he had known, and the life he had planned, might not matter at all. Because Leora had already made her choice for him, Jared spent the rest of the day walking through Leora's palace, trying to understand the weight of her words. Every corridor, every garden, every glowing crystal seemed to reflect not just beauty, but a centuries-long sorrow. Leora moved beside him silently, her presence comforting yet almost unbearable in its intensity. He realized that her loneliness wasn't just a feeling, it was the very essence of her life. She carried the weight of millennia in her eyes, and each glance reminded him that no one had ever stayed with her long enough to soften that burden. She led him to a terrace overlooking the city of Siralith. Floating towers shimmered with silver light, gardens drifted in the air, and rivers of soft luminescence wound like veins across the land. "Look at my world," she said quietly, "but do not be deceived. For all its beauty, it is a prison. Everything here is eternal, yet there is no warmth. No family, no laughter that ages naturally. No endings that give meaning to beginnings." Jared swallowed hard. He had visited civilizations that had thrived for centuries, but he had never felt the emptiness she described. Her world was alive, breathtakingly so, but it lacked one thing, the passage of time that gave life its depth. Here, every moment was infinite, and every soul that arrived eventually left, leaving her behind. "They all leave," she whispered. "Humans, aliens, travelers. Even those I cared for the most. They leave and I remain. I have watched kings grow old and die, civilizations collapse and rise again, and yet I remain, untouched, unchanged. I thought I had accepted this fate. I thought I had learned to endure, but then you came." Jared's heart tightened. He had expected diplomacy, protocol, polite conversation. Instead, he found himself standing in the presence of a being whose very existence had been carved by centuries of loss. "Leora, he began, but his words faltered. He didn't know how to respond. There was no council in the galaxy, no training manual for this. She turned to him, her glowing eyes searching his face. "You are not like the others," she said softly. "I see in you what I have not seen for centuries: honesty, courage, and a heart that still hopes. You laugh even in fear. You offer kindness without expecting reward. You are alive in ways I had almost forgotten." Jared felt a mixture of awe and guilt. I am just a human," he said quietly. "I have my fears, my weaknesses. I cannot stay forever. My life, my people." Leora shook her head, a faint breeze lifting her silver hair. "Your life is why I cannot let you go. You are the first soul in millennia that I fear losing, not because you are powerful, not because you are bound to me, but because your spirit reminds me of what I have lost. Every friend, every companion, every traveler I cherished and lost. I cannot endure losing you too." Her words struck him like a blow. He had faced impossible odds, survived life-threatening situations, and walked through worlds on the brink of war. Yet he felt powerless here. Not because of her strength, but because of the raw vulnerability in her voice. She was not commanding him, threatening him, or forcing him. She was merely asking him to stay. For the sake of her heart, which had waited for centuries for a single soul that mattered. He looked around the terrace again, seeing the gardens, the towers, the glowing rivers. But now everything felt tinged with sorrow. The beauty of her world could not hide the loneliness that clung to every corner. He realized that her fear was not of death or destruction. It was the slow, endless ache of isolation, of waiting for someone who would never stay. I don't know if I can stay," he admitted softly, the truth of it settling in his chest. "But I understand why you want me to." Leora's lips curved faintly, her gaze softening. "Understanding is the first step," she said. "The next step is knowing why losing you would break me in ways I cannot endure. I cannot lie to you. I must tell you the truth, Jared. It is the truth of my life, and perhaps, if you choose to stay, of yours as well." Jared felt a shiver run through him. He had faced danger, betrayal, and death. But he had never encountered a truth that could bind him with mere words. Something ancient and fragile trembled in the air between them. A tension of hope and fear, longing and impossibility as the twin moons of Siralith rose, casting silver light across the floating city. Jared realized that nothing about this encounter would be simple. He had stepped into a world of wonder and beauty, but also sorrow and eternity. And the choice he would face would not just be about duty, or life, or even love. It would be about the survival of a soul that had already survived 1,000 years of loss. And for the first time, he felt the weight of what it meant to truly matter to someone eternal. That night, Jared tried to sleep, but sleep refused him. The soft hum of the palace, the glowing rivers outside, and the faint scent of alien flowers filled the room, but his mind kept returning to Leora's words. She had told him she couldn't bear to lose him, yet she hadn't explained why. The uncertainty gnawed at him. Why him? Why now? He had thought he understood the loneliness she carried, but he was beginning to feel there was something deeper, darker that she hadn't yet revealed, unable to rest. He left the guest chamber and wandered the marble halls. The corridors were silent except for the soft echo of his footsteps. The walls shimmered faintly, responding to his presence, and the air carried the faint warmth of Leora's life force. Every corner seemed alive, yet it was a cold beauty, a perfection that felt untouched by time but hollow. He reached the great doors leading to the main hall, intending only to clear his mind, and there she was. Leora stood in the center, her silver hair glowing faintly in the moonlight. Her robes flowing as if a wind only she could feel brushed them. "You are awake," she said softly. "I couldn't sleep," Jared admitted. "I keep thinking about what you said this morning. About not letting me leave." Her eyes reflected a strange mixture of fear and vulnerability, emotions Jared had never seen in someone so powerful. "I am not asking for control," she whispered. "I am asking because I am tired of losing souls I care for. I cannot endure another departure." Jared took a careful step forward, trying to keep his tone gentle. "You barely know me. I am only here for a day or two. You've lived centuries, surely. You've survived longer than my visit." Her eyes darkened with centuries of memory. "I have survived," she said softly. "I have endured every goodbye, every friend I lost, every human or traveler who left me behind. I thought I had accepted my fate. I thought I could bear it. But when I met you, something changed. You are not like the others. Your presence, it touches me in ways I cannot explain." Jared felt his chest tighten. "Leora, I cannot stay. I have a life outside this palace. I have people depending on me. My world, my crew, they need me." She shook her head slowly. "It is not your duty that binds me to you. It is your soul. You carry warmth I have not seen in millennia. Courage without arrogance. Honesty without self-interest. Laughter even in fear. You are alive, and I have forgotten what it feels to see life in someone else." Her words were a mixture of awe and despair, of longing and terror, and Jared felt a strange pressure against his chest, as if the weight of centuries rested there with him. He wanted to argue, to force reason into the situation, but it was impossible. She was not threatening him. She was exposing herself. She was letting him see the raw, eternal wound she had carried alone for centuries. "Why me?" he whispered finally. "Why now? There must have been others before me, others who stayed longer than a day." A shadow passed across her face. "They stayed, yes," she admitted. "But they left. Every single one. I do not ask for love or loyalty or devotion. I ask only for someone who will not leave me when I need them most. You. You are the first I believe can give me that." Jared's pulse quickened. He realized that her refusal to let him leave was not born of desire or possession. It was desperation. A desperation born of centuries of unending solitude, of loss, of watching every connection die while she remained. I don't know if I can stay," he said quietly. "I have my own life. I can't just abandon it." Her lips trembled. For the first time, he saw the faintest quiver of fear cross her face. She stepped closer, lowering her voice until it was almost a whisper. "I am not asking you to abandon life. I am asking you to save mine. Without someone I trust, without a soul I care for to anchor me, I will fade. I will cease to exist, not physically, but completely. Everything I am will vanish, except the memory of those I lost before. I cannot endure that again." The weight of her confession pressed on him. He had faced wars, storms, monsters, and political betrayals, yet nothing had prepared him for the sheer vulnerability of an immortal being on the verge of collapse. He felt powerless, overwhelmed, yet compelled to act. "Leora," he said softly, "I understand now. I don't know what to do. But I cannot ignore what you've just told me." Her eyes glistened under the twin moons of Siralith, and for the first time in centuries, she allowed herself to tremble, not in anger, not in power, but in fear. Fear of losing something she had longed for millennia, and fear that even now, she might be too late. Jared realized that this night would change everything. The choice he would make and the reason she could not let him leave would define both of their lives forever. And for the first time, he understood the true cost of eternity. The next morning, Jared found Leora in the central garden, surrounded by flowers that glowed softly under the twin suns. The colors were beautiful, almost unreal, but they could not distract him from the tension in the air. She did not speak at first. She simply watched him approach, her eyes reflecting centuries of pain and a fragile hope that seemed almost too heavy to carry. "Jared," she began, her voice trembling faintly, "there is something I have not told you. Something you must know if you are to understand why I cannot let you leave." He nodded, unsure whether he wanted to hear it. He had already sensed the depth of her loneliness, the desperation behind her words, but now he knew it went deeper. "Tell me," he said softly. "I need to understand." She took a deep breath, and for the first time, Jared saw a shadow cross her eternal face, a weight she could no longer hide. "I am dying," she said, each word deliberate, fragile. Jared froze. "Dying?" he repeated, disbelief in his voice. "But you are. Eternal. You cannot die." She shook her head slowly. "My body is eternal. I do not age. I do not weaken. But my spirit, my soul, it is not infinite. Every 1,000 years, I must bind myself to a living soul who chooses to remain with me. Without that bond, I fade. Slowly, completely, until nothing remains of me except the memories of those I loved and lost." He stepped back, struggling to comprehend what she was saying. For centuries, she had survived alone, untouched by time. Yet now she faced an ending that no weapon, no diplomacy, and no alien science could prevent. Her survival depended on a connection, a living, willing connection to someone else. "Why? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Jared asked, his voice breaking slightly. "I would have stayed if I had known." She shook her head again, silver hair brushing against her glowing robes. "I have never asked before. I have never begged anyone to stay. I have lived for thousands of years alone, and I thought I could endure it. But when I met you, I felt something I had not felt in centuries. Something that made me realize, I cannot survive losing you." Jared's chest tightened. He had faced impossible choices, but none had weighed as heavily as this. He was a human, a short-lived being in the span of her life, and yet here she stood, centuries of wisdom and sorrow in her eyes, asking him to remain to save her from oblivion. "You want me to stay because you're lonely," he said softly. His own heart aching. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "Not just loneliness. I am tired of surviving alone. I am tired of being eternal while everything I care for passes away. You are different. You are alive in a way that fills the emptiness in me. I did not ask for love. I did not even ask for friendship. I only asked for someone who will not leave when I need them most." He looked at her, understanding the truth in her gaze. This was not possessiveness. It was desperation. A fear carved over centuries. She was reaching for the first hand in 1,000 years that she believed could hold her steady. "Leora." He began, but words failed him. He wanted to comfort her, to promise that he could stay and protect her spirit, but his life was not hers. He could not abandon it, not completely. And yet, he could not walk away. Not knowing what would happen if he did, she took a step closer, and Jared noticed the faint quiver in her hands. "I have watched the galaxy change, civilizations rise and fall, friends age and die, lovers leave me. And I survived it all. But I cannot survive losing you. I cannot, and I am asking, begging in my own way. Will you stay?" Jared swallowed hard. His mind raced. He could not remain forever. He had responsibilities, people who depended on him, a life that awaited him outside this palace. But he also realized something that cut deeper than any decision he had ever faced. If he left, she would fade. Not immediately, not visibly perhaps, but her spirit would dissolve into nothingness, and centuries of life, pain, and memory would be lost. I don't know if I can stay forever," he said, voice barely audible. "But I cannot let you fade alone, either. I will stay. For now, long enough for you to survive, long enough for your spirit to heal." Leora's eyes filled with silver light. And for the first time in millennia, she allowed herself to tremble, not in fear, not in power, but in relief and gratitude. She stepped forward and lightly touched his arm, the contact warm, grounding. "Long enough," she whispered. "Not forever, but not abandoned." Jared nodded, feeling a strange weight lift, even as a heavier responsibility settled in his chest. He had become more than a visitor. He had become a lifeline for someone eternal. Someone whose centuries of existence had depended on moments like this. And for the first time, he truly understood what it meant to matter to someone immortal, whose heart had outlasted the galaxy itself. The evening on Seralith fell quietly, but the weight in the air was heavy, almost suffocating. Jared sat in the floating garden, watching the glowing flowers sway gently in the soft wind. The rivers shimmered like liquid silver below him, reflecting the twin moons above. Every detail of this world was breathtaking, yet none of it could erase the gnawing ache in his chest. Leora had shared her truth, the secret that had haunted her for centuries, and now he understood the depth of her desperation. She was not asking for comfort. She was asking for survival, and his choice would determine the outcome. He looked across the garden, where Leora stood silently, her figure framed by the glowing flora. Her eyes held both hope and fear, a combination so raw that Jared felt as if they cut directly into his soul. "I can't stay forever," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. "It isn't my life to give away completely." Her gaze softened, but it did not waver. "I know," she said. "And yet, every moment you consider leaving is a moment I feel slipping away. I am not asking for eternity, Jared. I am asking for time. Just enough time to survive, to heal, to hold on to what I have become over millennia." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. He had faced impossible missions, survived ambushes on hostile worlds, and walked through disasters that should have killed him. But nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing had prepared him for a choice that would weigh on him not just for days or months, but for lifetimes. He could leave and save himself from a future bound to a world not his own. Or he could stay and give her the one thing she had been searching for across centuries: hope. Leora took a cautious step closer, the soft hum of her aura brushing against him. "I am not asking because I am desperate for love or for power," she said. "I am asking because without you, I will fade. Not immediately, not visibly perhaps, but slowly, completely. My essence will dissolve into nothing. And I have survived so much already. I cannot survive losing you too." Jared's heart ached. He realized in that moment that her refusal to let him leave was not born of selfish desire, but of a pain so deep it had lasted centuries. She was not controlling him. She was clinging to the only life force she believed could keep her alive. And for the first time, he understood the true meaning of sacrifice, not giving up your life, but giving up your freedom for someone who truly needed you. He took a deep breath and walked toward her. The air shimmered around them, carrying the faint energy of her presence, and every step felt heavier than the last. When he stopped in front of her, she looked up, silver light glinting in her eyes. I can't promise forever," he said. "But I cannot abandon you. I will stay long enough for you to survive. Long enough for your spirit to heal. Long enough so that when I leave, it is not into darkness, but into a world you can still walk in without fear." Her lips trembled, a faint smile breaking through the layers of sorrow she had carried for centuries. "Long enough," she whispered, her voice shaking with relief. "Not forever, but not abandoned." Jared reached out, gently taking her hand. It was warm, grounding, and he felt the pulse of her life beneath his fingers. In that moment, he realized he had not just made a choice for her, but for himself. He had chosen connection, vulnerability, and trust over duty and distance. He had chosen to matter to someone eternal, someone whose life spanned millennia. Tears shimmered in Leora's eyes. And for the first time in Jared's life, he held someone whose strength had lasted through centuries, yet who could still break and tremble like any mortal. He held her because it was the only thing he could do. The only way to give her what she had waited for across the endless stretch of time, a reason to survive. A reason to hope again. The night settled around them, quiet and luminous. Seralith's twin moons glowed softly above, casting silver light on the floating gardens and the rivers that shimmered like liquid memories. In that stillness, Jared understood that this night, this choice, had changed everything. He had not only saved Leora's life, he had become part of it. And in doing so, he had discovered something about himself, that courage is not just facing danger, but facing a choice that could break your heart, and choosing to stay anyway. And as he held her hand, he felt the fragile thread of centuries connect with a single moment, a single decision. It was not forever. It was uncertain. But it was hope, the most powerful force either of them had ever known. For the first time, Leora allowed herself to lean into someone, not as a goddess, not as an immortal, but as a woman who had waited 1,000 years for a single soul willing to stay. And Jared understood. Sometimes, heroism was not about saving the world, it was about saving someone from themselves. And in doing so, discovering a world worth staying for.